it is difficult for Chinese people to own a safe house. Why does it become a dream? Well, we all know China's real estate industry can be considered the largest in the world. The majority of Chinese people's savings are invested in their homes. However, the quality of residential construction in China has always been a concern for both buyers and residents. Chinese people often refer to buildings with poor quality or serious safety issues as tofu buildings. For example, in June 2021, a netizen uploaded a video of a newly constructed real estate project leaking water after delivery. This happened in a coastal city in southeastern China. On June 19, in this city, located in southern China, a 7-story building completely collapsed, with the exact number of casualties unknown. The building collapsed from the upper right to the lower left, crushing part of the road. The frame structure of the building, measuring 6 to 7 spans horizontally, had its columns completely crushed. The question arises as to whether government officials will be held accountable for this incident. Some netizens sarcastically suggested that the victims didn't even count as statistics, and they pointed out the absence of reinforcing steel bars, hinting that they might have been taken by foreign entities. On July 5, a large area insulation material on the exterior wall of a high-rise residential building in Harbin, Heilongjiang province fell off. The next day, tiles on the exterior wall of a high-rise building fell off in Xinhua, Hunan, causing many injuries. Reporters found that this year, the exterior walls of such high-rise buildings have fallen off in various places. Many incidents occurred in central and southern China. Similar incidents occurred in central and southern China, including the collapse of a road after heavy rain and an incident where a vehicle nearly fell into a large hole in the south. This is a video from Xi'an City, Shanxi province. The intersection of Kuliling Road and Sichuan Road in Guangzhou district on June 5, 2021. Strong winds caused the exterior wall of a community to collapse, leading to doubts about the quality of the wall. From May 18 to 20, in Shenzhen, a 71-story building known as the Seg Tower shook for 3 consecutive days. People inside the building rushed out in panic. There was no earthquake in Shenzhen on that day, and the wind speed was only 3 to 4. The Seg Tower had previously set a record in Shenzhen for its construction speed, completing 1 floor in a short period of time, and later became an iconic building in the city. The fast construction speed of the tower had raised concerns among the public, and the 3-day shaking earned it the nickname Shaky Building. During a severe windstorm, both the building's exterior wall insulation and exterior wall tiles fell off simultaneously, after residents reported issues with their homes. A government official visited the site and got stuck in an elevator for about 20 to 30 minutes due to a breakdown. 2 months earlier, the developer had handed over the newly completed building to the home buyers, who discovered serious quality problems with the building. These are just a few examples of what are commonly referred to as tofu building projects in China. The term tofu building was first coined by former Chinese Premier Zhu Rongji after he inspected the collapse of flood defenses in a southern city in 1998. The premier strongly criticized it as a tofu construction project. Since then, the term tofu construction has frequently appeared in all major Chinese media and gradually gained recognition. More than 2 decades later, the collapse of tofu construction projects in China has not decreased. Instead, it has become more widespread. It continues to occur and has eventually become a notable characteristic of China, known worldwide. A hotel in Suzhou collapsed, causing the tragic death of 17 people. In response, 25 government officials are facing accountability measures for their roles in the incident. People who were present during the collapse still vividly remember the terrifying experience, which continues to haunt them. On April 25, 2021, in Yang County, Henan Province, a landscape bridge that was under construction collapsed. In the southern region of China, there has been a sudden collapse of an under-construction flyover. During a time when China was seemingly prosperous, a glaring issue that came to light was the pervasive problem of corruption. In the current climate of a gradually declining economy, the susceptibility to substandard construction projects, often referred to as Tofu Dreg projects, has markedly increased. This begs the question, can we place our trust in the quality of these projects when financial resources are dwindling? It is imperative to acknowledge that these Tofu Dreg projects serve as harbingers of what are commonly known as rotten tail buildings. The surge in Tofu Dreg projects in recent years forewarned the imminent emergence of a surge in inadequately constructed rotten tail buildings. The crux of the matter lies in the fact that if developers can successfully deliver these subpar Tofu Dreg projects to homebuyers, there may be a diminished incentive for them to ensure the structural integrity and safety of their buildings. To exemplify this point, we can reference the unfortunate incident of an underground garage collapse in Zhejiang province, where the presence of exposed steel bars conspicuously indicated a substandard Tofu Dreg project. This is the underground garage of a neighborhood in Zhejiang province which has collapsed. A citizen told a story on news. "I'm taking great risks to document this situation. Where has all the concrete gone? Look at this staircase. It's on the verge of collapsing. The walls are riddled with holes. There are no electrical outlets, and basic utilities like gas and running water are non-existent. Each day I find myself lugging heavy water bottles up and down the stairs, filling them using an outdoor hose. It's like going from a dream to a nightmare. Our family invested everything in this house. Initially, I purchased it for my son, who had ambitions to start a business in this city. Little did I know that the building would deteriorate to such an extent. My family has become fractured, with my son and husband refusing to speak with me. Miss Xu is currently unemployed, and her son and husband, residing in a distant province, blame her for their financial woes. They have severed communication ties, and she has no alternative but to occupy her incomplete apartment, hoping that the local government in Guilin will step in and assist her in resolving her predicament. She was just one of approximately 20 buyers living in what they call decaying apartments in Xi'an County Mansion. They've resorted to this either to exert pressure on developers and authorities to complete the construction, or due to dire financial circumstances, as many developers are grappling with financial constraints amidst China's deep real estate crisis. Although certain local governments have established bailout funds to stabilize the property market, buyers like Xu, who made advance deposits and have mortgages, remain in a state of limbo. Xu acquired her two-bedroom, 753-square-foot flat in early 2019, approximately a year after Zhejiang Bao Real Estate commenced the marketing of units at a rate of around $851 per square meter. These units were touted to feature amenities such as floor heating and a communal swimming pool. Initially, construction progressed at a rapid pace, with blocks rising swiftly in the planned 34-tower complex. However, the fortunes of Bao Real Estate took a turn for the worse in June 2020, when its parent company faced allegations of illicit fundraising, leading to the seizure of $47.09 million worth of assets, including units in Xi'an County Mansion. Consequently, construction came to an abrupt halt in mid-2020, with Xu only becoming aware of the situation months later. She described her feelings during that period as experiencing from paradise to hell. To make ends meet, she is compelled to purchase meals from external sources, boil water for essential needs, and endure the hardships associated with dwelling in an unfinished apartment devoid of hot water, running water, or electricity. The occupants even rely on a makeshift outdoor toilet. Their predicament symbolizes the bursting of the real estate bubble in China. The country's pre-sale policy, which mandates that buyers pay up front and secure a bank loan for properties that are still under construction, has left countless buyers in dire straits. When these properties fail to meet expectations, buyers not only lose their initial deposits but also grapple with the burden of repaying their bank loans. The suspension of mortgage payments for these decaying buildings across different regions of China has triggered a domino effect, exacerbating the crisis. Why is the prevalence of substandard construction projects, often referred to as Tofu Dreg projects, on the rise in China? Let's explore this issue by considering recent specific incidents. On August 8, 2021, a tragic incident occurred in Harbin, a northern Chinese city, where the 7th floor of an office building suddenly collapsed. Chinese official media reported that 11 people were trapped, with 4 fatalities and 7 injuries. This building, originally a local government structure, aged approximately 50 to 60 years and had later been leased to a private company. Notably, the 7th floor where the collapse occurred was a later addition. The accident transpired while 11 workers were waterproofing the roof, leading to the roof's collapse. In a separate incident documented in a mainland media video from September 2020, a deputy mayor in Hainan province discovered construction workers taking shortcuts at a construction site. And on the afternoon of July 23 at 14:56, the Qiqihar Fire Rescue Brigade received an alarm that the Gymnasium of Qiqihar No. 34 middle school had collapsed, trapping multiple people. At 15:10 on the same day, the fire rescue team arrived at the scene and conducted reconnaissance, revealing that the roof of the No. 34 middle school gymnasium had completely collapsed. The fire rescue personnel immediately initiated rescue operations. According to Xinhua news agency, at the time of the accident, there were a total of 19 people inside the gymnasium, with 4 people escaping on their own and 15 others trapped. Based on the initial on-site investigation during the construction of the adjacent comprehensive teaching building, the construction unit violated regulations by piling pumice on the roof of the gymnasium. Due to rainfall, the pumice became waterlogged and increased in weight, leading to an increased load on the roof, resulting in the collapse. The first issue raised is whether the water-absorbing property of pumice was the direct cause of the accident, and whether there were also quality issues with the basketball stadium's roof. The second issue concerns the 26-year-old teaching building and whether routine quality inspections were neglected over time. The third concern is related to the newly constructed comprehensive building, and questions have been raised about the possibility of corruption and whether on-site safety personnel turned a blind eye to certain matters. The fourth issue revolves around parents of the deceased students claiming that they were not informed about the situation. There are 2 explanations why the building collapsed. Firstly, the issue of routine safety inspections of the 26-year-old teaching building. Formalism is commonly observed in many regions, especially in northeast China. For old buildings with many years of service, regular safety inspections should be conducted annually. For enterprises, failure to conduct equipment inspections would result in fines and rectification orders from the relevant authorities. For schools, neglecting inspections could lead to the Educational Bureau's leadership taking responsibilities. Hence, safety inspections are an indispensable aspect and can even be considered mandatory. In this regard, relevant departments allocate funds for building safety inspections, which are carried out by qualified individuals. However, whether funds were allocated and inspections were performed or not remains unknown, and it is even possible that the allocated funds were misappropriated. Therefore, this underlying issue also requires in-depth investigation. Secondly, the presence of any hidden dealings in the construction of the new comprehensive building. The official explanation for the basketball stadium collapse is that the roof collapsed due to the improper stacking of pumice. The reason for the improper stacking was the ongoing construction of a nearby comprehensive building. This comprehensive building was constructed by the Heilongjiang Jiame Construction Company, Limited, and there are indeed some questionable aspects related to this construction company. Firstly, this construction company has undertaken multiple projects within the school campus. It started as a decoration company and then ventured into construction. While it may have acquired qualifications, the quality of its work is uncertain. Moreover, winning multiple bids for school construction projects indicates a certain level of capability, which is likely to be beyond doubt. Secondly, for the No. 34 comprehensive building project, Jiamai was not the initial winning bidder. According to available information, Jiamai Construction was not awarded the project initially. The first winning bid was secured by Jiangsu Dahong Construction Industrial Group Company, Limited, and Northeast Forestry University Engineering Consulting Design Research Institute Company, Limited. These 2 companies collaborated, increasing the chances of winning the bid. Such operations indeed resulted in both companies securing the bid, and the bid prices and design fees were disclosed as 31.54 million yuan and 665,000 yuan, respectively. However, something peculiar happened subsequently. Not long after winning the bid, the project was declared invalid due to objections, and it was re-tendered. In the second tender, Jiamei Construction won the bid, but the bid price was not disclosed. In other words, they initially won the bid, provided the bid price and had a design institute supporting them, but then the project was cancelled. In the second attempt, Jiamei won the bid again, but this time the bid price was not revealed, and there was no mention of a design institute involved. When journalists attempted to interview the project director at the time, it was claimed that the director had been transferred and could not be reached. In conclusion, the entire Jiamei Construction Company's involvement in the construction of the No. 34 building is shrouded in mystery. Currently, China covered all information about the deceased students. On July 24th, many people saw a video where the father of one of the deceased girls expressed his anguish over the events of that day. The father stated that his daughter was inside the building, and he was only informed of her death just now. However, in reality, his daughter had already lost her breath and life from the moment she was rescued. Yet he was denied access to see her or obtain information. He expressed his acceptance of his child's passing, but could not accept the neglectful handling of the situation, where information was withheld, and the presence of a large number of police seemed to be merely for preventing any disturbances. It was only then that people realized that the initial reports had only focused on reporting positive news and failed to disclose the reality. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, netizens have observed that the disclosure of the Pumis issue is a way for the relevant authorities to shift blame and avoid discussing the problems of building aging or potential shortcuts in construction. As multiple issues have surfaced, it becomes apparent that the convergence of these factors has damaged the image of the relevant organizations in the eyes of the public. Officials who constantly prioritize their own reputations are bound to undermine public trust, as concealing and evading issues too frequently leads to public skepticism regardless of subsequent statements. The proliferation of Tofu Dreg projects in China can be attributed to various factors. An article in the Daily Economic News of mainland China sheds light on this issue. The author, who once worked in a construction administration department, reveals some dark secrets within the construction industry. He said, "The financial pressure involved in construction projects should be taken consideration. Funds must cover materials, labor, and management expenses. Fierce market competition leads to slim profit margins. Even when the entire construction budget is allocated to the project, profits often remain under 10%. Consequently, a significant portion of project funds might be used for bribes. To maintain profitability, corners may be cut on a large scale, subpar materials may be purchased, or labor costs may be defaulted upon. These issues are exacerbated by the breakneck speed of construction in China. The desire to complete projects quickly leads to rushed work, insufficient quality control, and the use of inferior materials. Furthermore, an unwritten rule in the construction industry mandates 20,000 work when conditions allow, contributing to shoddy workmanship. Counterfeit materials, such as fake steel bars, also find their way into construction projects, jeopardizing structural integrity. The rapid pace of infrastructure and real estate development, driven by China's economic growth, further exacerbates the problem. A combination of financial pressures, competition, lax oversight, rapid development, and unethical practices has resulted in an increasing number of substandard construction projects in China, posing significant risks to public safety and property. China grapples with construction quality and natural disaster risks. Besides, the state of construction for these facilities is a matter of serious concern. The impact of various natural disasters, such as heavy snow and strong winds, is making the living and working conditions of the average Chinese citizen increasingly precarious. This was evident when a powerful tornado swept through several villages in China's eastern provinces, causing extensive damage like ripping off roofs and toppling power poles and trees. While the local government officially reported no casualties, social media in China suggested a different story, with claims of 2 villages reduced to ruins, at least 3 fatalities, and numerous injuries. The Chinese Communist Party (CCP) conducted its inaugural national survey on comprehensive natural disaster risks. Why is it crucial to map out data on property construction for disaster prevention? It now appears to be essential, considering the scale of the issue. According to this data, there are over 600 million urban and rural buildings and more than 800,000 municipal facilities spread across cities, towns, and villages in China. These structures are intended to provide people with shelter, but may ironically pose risks due to quality concerns. Before the Great Firewall of China crumbled, Chinese citizens continued to endure pain right within their own homes and workplaces, driven by the fear of buildings that might collapse at any moment.
In China, the term tofu dregs, the pieces left over after making tofu, is widely used as a metaphor for shoddy work, implying that a tofu dreg project is a poorly executed project. The prevalence of tofu dreg projects is due to rampant corruption and graft in China, as project money is skimmed off the top by and for officials, leaving less funding for quality materials, qualified staff, and acceptable workmanship. While projects are often granted to companies with more political connections than qualifications, in recent years there have been numerous incidents of tofu dreg bridges, buildings, and roads, causing serious damage. In this video, we will discuss tofu dreg bridges in 2024 and highlight some typical examples of such projects in mainland China in recent years. Tofu dreg bridge collapse in Guangzhou, leaving 8 casualties. The Guangzhou Xi'an bridge was hit and broken by an empty ship. Officials reported 5 deaths and 3 injuries, placing the blame on the ship's crew. However, netizens accused the shoddy construction of causing the disaster. The confusion reported by official media also exposed the bridge's quality issues. At around 5:30 Beijing time on February 22nd, an empty container ship struck the pier of the Guangzhou Xi'an bridge while navigating the Hongqili waterway, causing the bridge deck to break. 5 vehicles fell from the bridge, including a bus. 2 fell into the water and 3 onto the ship. According to an official report from Guangzhou, the accident resulted in 5 deaths and 3 injuries. The cause of the accident was improper operation by the crew, which led to the ship's port side hitting the 18 pier of the downstream navigation channel, followed by the bow striking the 19 pier, causing the bridge deck to break. However, many Chinese netizens left comments defending the ship's crew, criticizing the CCP's shoddy construction. If you don't mind me asking, was the empty container ship too powerful, or was the bridge too fragile? An empty ship can break a bridge pier, so you can imagine the quality of this structure. It's likely the bridge was at fault. Any bridge design should account for potential collisions. This bridge collapsed after one hit. Those responsible for its construction cannot escape accountability. Some professionals commented that the bridge design firm bears more than half the responsibility, with the construction owner and the administrative approval unit also holding unavoidable responsibility. The ship's owner should bear secondary responsibility. According to one comment, the inland navigation standards state that the minimum clear width for a one-way navigation hole on a Class 2 natural river should not be less than 75 meters, and for a two-way navigation hole, not less than 150 meters. The waterway where the Xi'an bridge is located is classified as Class 2, but the span of the main bridge's navigation hole is 55 plus 85 plus 55 meters, meaning none of the bridge's navigation holes meet Class 2 requirements. Additionally, the bridge has no proper navigation marks, just some colored markers on the piers, which are not visible at night. According to CCTV reports, the anti-collision facilities of the Xi'an bridge appear to be not yet completed. However, Shanghai's official media outlet, The Paper, reported that the Xi'an bridge completed the installation of new anti-collision devices in 2023. A Tofu Dreg bridge collapsed in Baoji City, Shanxi. A vehicle was left suspended in the air and nearly fell. Recently, a series of bridge collapses have occurred in Shanxi, China. The bridge deck on the expressway in Baoji City collapsed, leaving a vehicle with its front wheels suspended in the air, almost falling. On July 25th, a resident of Baoji told Jimu News that a few days earlier, while passing the Tashaohe Bridge on the expressway, she noticed a partial collapse of the bridge deck. To alert others to the danger, she recorded a video. When she passed by again on the 24th, the affected section had been cordoned off, preventing people and vehicles from passing through. According to a staff member from the Baoji Housing and Urban Rural Development Bureau, a car nearly fell at the collapse site of the Taklamakan Bridge, but the road closure and timely intervention prevented further disaster. The front wheels of the car were suspended in the air, the chassis was damaged, but fortunately the occupants were unharmed. The bridge deck collapse was first discovered in the early morning of July 17th. Preliminary investigations revealed that flooding had eroded one side of the bridge abutment, causing the bridge deck to overturn and collapse. The Xi'an Morning News quoted a staff member from the propaganda department of the CPC Zhishui County Committee, stating that the collapse of the road and bridge was entirely due to rainfall. However, public opinion suggests the collapse is more likely linked to poor construction quality. The CCP's official media had previously reported that the first phase of the Baoji City Rapid Trunk Line had opened to traffic on January 18, 2023, with the collapse occurring just 6 months later, on July 17th. Some netizens argue that frequent incidents like this should prompt investigations into construction and maintenance practices, rather than being attributed solely to rainfall. They insist that only a poorly constructed Tofu Dreg bridge would collapse after such a short period of use. 2 days after the Baoji Bridge collapse, July 19, 2024, another Tofu Dreg bridge collapsed in Shanxi, resulting in 43 casualties. The collapse of another Shanxi bridge and the controversy over blame shifting. A tragic bridge collapse occurred in Shanxi province a few days ago, causing at least dozens of deaths and missing persons. The authorities attributed the cause to heavy rainfall, but netizens have questioned whether this was just an excuse to avoid responsibility. On Friday evening, July 19, 2024, a highway bridge in Zhishui County, Shanghai City, collapsed due to torrential rain and flash floods. Officials reported that 25 vehicles fell into the river, 12 people were killed, and more than 31 others remain missing. However, due to the CCP's habit of falsifying and concealing data, the actual disaster toll may be higher. Public records show that the Danning Expressway, an important transportation artery in southern Shanxi, was opened in December 2018. The collapsed section had been in use for less than 6 years. Shanghai officials claimed that torrential rain and flash floods had caused the bridge's collapse, but netizens questioned this explanation. If heavy rain and floods were really the cause, why were the surrounding bridges unaffected? Why was this bridge so fragile, with the entire deck breaking? Many netizens suspect the collapse was the result of another shoddy construction project, with authorities shifting blame onto the weather. In May of this year, a similar incident occurred on the Maida Expressway in Guangzhou, where a bridge collapsed after days of heavy rain, killing 48 people. The prevalence of tofu projects in China is due to rampant corruption and graft, as project funds are skimmed off the top for and by officials, leaving less funding for quality materials, qualified staff, and acceptable workmanship. Projects are often awarded to companies with stronger political ties than qualifications. Furthermore, tribute projects are frequently rushed to completion in time for state anniversaries. For example, in 2007, a bridge in Hunan province, where construction was expedited to coincide with the 50th anniversary of the local prefecture, collapsed during construction, killing 64 people. Additionally, local governments rely on revenues from construction, including land sales and transfer fees, incentivizing them to promote rapid, unchecked growth, even turning a blind eye to substandard construction. In July 2021, another instance of Tofu Dreg construction occurred in Guangzhou, Henan province, when torrential rains and flooding brought the city to a standstill. Guangzhou was referred to as a sponge city due to its vulnerable drainage system. Some argued that the unprecedented rain levels were to blame, but evidence later pointed to weak infrastructure. Such disasters have occurred multiple times in Guangzhou, earning it the reputation of being spongy, a consequence of Tofu Dreg construction. After visiting China in early 2011, Canadian journalist Lawrence Solomon stated that many Chinese people fear that a tofu dam might fail, leading to hundreds of thousands of downstream victims. According to Chinese architect Li Hu, tofu dreg projects in China are vastly outnumbered by buildings without construction flaws. Li noted that in most cases, poorly built structures don't collapse, but suffer reduced lifespans or leakages. A February 2023 survey on natural disaster risks found that China has nearly 600 million buildings. The race for urbanization in the context of rapid growth has resulted in many residential and major infrastructure projects in China failing to meet required quality standards. There have been cases where newly constructed buildings collapsed shortly after completion due to their weakness, a hallmark of tofu dreg construction. On June 28th, Shanghai's local newspaper reported that over 400 residents in other buildings within the Lotus Riverside complex surrounded the main office of the primary developer, My Home Real Estate Company, demanding refunds for the money they paid for their apartments due to safety concerns. "We dare not live in our homes anymore. We demand that the investors refund our money and compensate us for the drop in property prices so we can buy elsewhere," said an upset customer, Zhou Hequan. Behind her stood hundreds of others with similar demands. They have hired lawyers to negotiate with the developer, but success seems unlikely. According to the law, only those who purchased apartments in the collapsed building are eligible for refunds and compensation. Chinese real estate apocalypse. Citizens unable to afford insurance at risk under CCP threat.
In certain regions of China, the housing market is undergoing a tumultuous nosedive, provoking intense frustration among its populace. Renowned investor Li Ka-shing's decision to offload Shanghai properties at a jaw-dropping 80% discount epitomizes the severity of the situation. In Shanghai's Iron Triangle, encompassing the Outer Ring Road and the Shanghai-Minhang Elevated Expressway, property prices have plunged from 140,000 yuan per square meter to a meager 51,000 yuan, reverting to levels not seen since 5 years ago. Simultaneously, the astronomical surge in healthcare insurance premiums, 38 times the previous rate, and the stagnant wages, which have merely doubled over 2 decades, have forced nearly 40 million individuals to abandon insurance payments. It's an alarming indication of the dire financial straits faced by ordinary citizens. Housing prices plunge in many Chinese cities, from $22,000 to $8,000 per square meter. According to a report by First Financial on March 19, the real estate sector is still experiencing setbacks. Presently, there are 58 real estate firms listed on the Shanghai and Shenzhen stock exchanges, which have issued performance projections. Out of these, 43 companies anticipate incurring non-recurring net losses for the previous year, ranging from around $8.79 billion to $11.76 billion. When considering real estate companies listed in Hong Kong as well, the cumulative loss disclosed by these firms surpasses $150 billion. In Shanghai, the housing prices in Shanghai are currently declining, with Minhang being hit particularly hard. This area, enclosed by the Middle Ring Road, Outer Ring Road, and the Shanghai-Minhang Elevated Expressway, belongs to the Minhang district. Especially around Meilong Town, near the Outer Ring Road subway station of Line 1, the prices in Luoyang New Village have plummeted the most, directly back to the levels of 2016. I don't know if buying a house brings you joy or sorrow. For me, it brings immense sorrow. Without a future here, I won't be the owner anymore. This house was the first one I bought in my life, and now I'm selling it myself. I feel very reluctant, truly reluctant. I don't want to pay the mortgage anymore. I don't want to put too much pressure on myself. In Guangdong, the situation is dire. Countless regular folks are grappling with substantial losses on their properties as prices plummet. For instance, a Seaview apartment in Huizhou, once valued at around 900,000 yuan, is now fetching just over 300,000 yuan, marking an astonishing 60% loss. Similarly, properties in the Dewan Center, previously priced at 12,300 yuan per square meter in 2021, are now being sold for just over 6,000 yuan, resulting in a significant halving of prices. Whether you're a property developer or an investor, drastic price reductions are now an unavoidable reality if you wish to make a sale.
买进的价格呢就是越高，泡沫去除之后呢，降的就越狠。
In Anhui, the house in Hefei has finally been sold unexpectedly quickly. The first house of my life resulted in a loss of nearly 300,000 yuan, which for us ordinary people, feels like our hearts are bleeding. It's really too painful. The reason for selling the house is due to a decrease in income and the immense pressure of mortgage payments. Paying 5,000 yuan per month for 30 years was too much. We didn't buy a house in Ningbo at that time because we didn't have enough down payment. From 2021, when we bought this house, until now, we have only visited twice. The cost of this mistaken choice is truly immense. After working hard and renting in Ningbo for over 10 years, it's all gone now. We can only accept reality and start over from scratch. There will be no more mortgages in the future, no more paying interest to the bank. Mortgages are terrifying. Thinking about it makes me feel incredibly relieved. From now on, if we have money, we'll buy in full. If not, we won't buy at all. We'll never use loans to buy a house prematurely again. We'll live within our means. Life is short, why burden ourselves with such pressure? We'll live according to our means. Different circles have different ways of living. From March 15 to March 17, the Shanghai upscale domain, located in the central ring of Shanghai, held the final round of pre-sale activities for its remaining units, including 2 additional units offered temporarily, totaling about 75 units with a combined value of approximately $125.2 million USD. The upscale domain is a mid to high-end property development by Chengkong Property Holdings, a real estate company under Li Ka-shing's control. In contrast, according to disclosures from real estate agencies, there were over 480 groups of potential buyers participating in this round of pre-sales. This means that the number of potential buyers exceeds the number of available units by 6 times, making a lottery inevitable. Recently, reporters from 21st Century Business Herald visited the sales office of the upscale domain to witness the buzz and excitement in the current Shanghai property market. Due to the large number of visitors, a barrier was set up at the entrance of the sales office, manned by several staff members in black work uniforms, while dozens of real estate agents gathered outside the barrier. What direction will the Shanghai new property market take? What is the actual situation regarding the highly anticipated upscale domain project? According to information released by Shanghai, the first batch of new houses introduced this year totaled 4,335 units, the second batch had 4,632 units, and the third batch had 5,216 units. Due to the large supply and homogeneity of products, there is naturally considerable sales pressure. Recently, high-end projects with longer inventory turnover cycles have entered the market, adding to the pressure felt by real estate developers. In early March, Shanghai announced the release of the third batch of new houses. Among them, 6 projects had average prices exceeding $17,200 per square meter, with 3 projects breaking the $26,645 per square meter mark, representing a more than 4% increase from the highest average price of $25,400 per square meter in the second batch. Among them, the average price of the Binjiang Triumphal Arch was almost $27,000 per square meter, Zhonghai Shanchangjiuli was $26,785 per square meter, and Xiadu Felicity 268 was $26,645 per square meter. According to statistics, there were 888 units of new houses in the third batch with total prices exceeding $3.9 million, the highest number in a single batch in the past 3 years. An analyst pointed out that there is a significant difference in the speed of product development between Hong Kong-funded enterprises and mainland enterprises. Mainland real estate developers, especially private ones, are more accustomed to a high-leverage, high-turnover development model, which carries higher risks. Hong Kong-funded real estate developers, who have experienced several cycles of fluctuation, tend to have lower leverage ratios and longer product development cycles, especially from land acquisition to commencement of construction. The development cycle of this land plot, from land acquisition to delivery, has also been relatively long. The Metropolis Hyatt Hotel opened in 2022. In December 2023, the commercial part of the project, Love Metropolis Shopping Mall, opened. As for the residential part, calculated from 2007, the expiration period of the last batch of homebuyers' property certificates has been 16 years. Once the residential part of the project is sold out, Li Ka-shing will have no other residential projects for sale in Shanghai, and after the previous sales, he only holds partial commercial properties. In recent years, the mainland real estate market has entered a period of adjustment. Many real estate companies have slowed their expansion pace due to liquidity crises. Hong Kong-funded real estate companies, once important participants in the mainland property market, have also slowed down their development pace. An analyst told 21st Century Business Herald that Hong Kong-funded real estate companies have always been risk-averse, and Li Ka-shing is particularly sensitive to investments. In the current market environment, a contraction in investment is not unexpected. Currently, there are still many Hong Kong-funded real estate companies with projects under construction or for sale in Shanghai, such as Xi'an Land Limited, Sun Hung Kai Properties, Carey Properties, Swire Properties, Hong Kong Land, and K.Wa International Holdings. However, they have moved away from the mainstream land auction market, focusing more on developing projects with existing stocks, mostly acquired in earlier years. The project types are mostly commercial complexes or urban renewal projects, with generally longer development cycles. Furthermore, the plight extends to construction workers and migrant laborers, who are feeling the brunt of the downturn as construction projects dwindle. Once enjoying lucrative wages, these workers now find themselves grappling with the harsh reality of unemployment. Adding to the grim picture, numerous manufacturing facilities are downsizing their operations due to plummeting orders, with some opting to relocate to Southeast Asia in pursuit of cheaper labor. The landscape of 2024 is bleak, with myriad challenges plaguing various sectors. It's staggering to witness how numerous large corporations are downsizing their workforce or implementing salary cuts, while smaller enterprises teeter on the edge of insolvency. Those businesses that struggled to scrape by last year now find themselves incurring substantial losses. Even renowned brands like Starbucks, Luckin Coffee, and KFC are grappling with an influx of middle-aged individuals feigning employment. In the real estate arena, both upstream and downstream segments are reeling, with unsold properties haunting the market. Over 40 million Chinese abandoned insurance, with rural medical coverage doubling in 20 years. Over the past 20 years, the nearly 40-fold increase, from $1.54 to $58.46 in medical insurance premiums has rendered it unaffordable for the Chinese populace and migrant workers. This policy, which seems to extract blood from the people to sustain the lives of the elite, coupled with the unfair distribution of medical insurance benefits, has shattered the public's confidence in the system. Furthermore, media investigations have found that the final straw breaking the public's trust in medical insurance is its inherent unfairness. The root of this distrust primarily lies in the allocation of funds within the medical insurance system, where ordinary individuals facing major illnesses still need to pay additional expenses out of pocket, while medicines in elite hospital wards are fully reimbursed. This exploitation of grassroots individuals to sustain the lives of the elite has left the general populace deeply aggrieved. Take the case of 49-year-old Lao Wang, a typical migrant worker who moved to the city in search of work. In a documentary titled Working Like This for 30 Years, which just premiered on NetEase News and depicts the living conditions of China's lower-class citizens, he faces the camera and points to a text message on his phone, saying that because he didn't earn any money last month, he can't even afford the $58 medical insurance premium. However, just a day after the documentary was released, it was promptly taken down by the authorities. Nevertheless, it's hard to ignore the fact that individuals like Lao Wang, unable to afford medical insurance, are not isolated cases in China. Didn't I not earn any money last month? They asked me to pay for medical insurance, but I haven't paid yet. Isn't it 380 yuan? They sent this message asking for payment. I still haven't found any work. For example, we know from statistics that there are probably over 600 million people in China earning less than 1,000 yuan per month. So for an elderly person who needs medical services even more, if they don't work in rural areas, they might receive less than 200 yuan in pension subsidies each month. So, we can compare a bit and understand that for them, the 380 yuan, $58.46 annual deductible is actually quite burdensome. According to official Chinese statistics, in the past 5 years, over 40 million people in China have abandoned their insurance coverage. Rural medical insurance has increased 38-fold over 20 years and 6-fold over the past decade alone, skyrocketing from an initial 10 yuan to $58.50. However, while people's income levels have risen by less than 2-fold, ordinary citizens truly cannot afford it. In the past year alone, 25 million people have opted out of insurance coverage. Don't be fooled by the seemingly modest sum of $58.50. It's important to understand that for a rural family of 5, this translates to about $290 annually. According to economic statistics, currently, there are still 600 million people in China with a monthly income of less than $153. For them, this amount of money is indeed significant. Wang Zhanqi, deputy researcher at the National Security Research Institute of the Academy of Military Science, who has long studied China's social security, analyzed that while $58.50 may not seem like much, its significance changes when placed in the context of the entire rural income. Many individuals feel they are paying into a system from which they never benefit. Essential medications are often unavailable in rural medical facilities, forcing people to pay out of pocket at pharmacies. Moreover, the requirement to pay annually, with coverage lapsing if not renewed each year, makes people feel like their contributions are wasted. This situation has led to widespread disillusionment with the system. To prevent people from dropping out of the medical insurance scheme, the Chinese Communist Party resorts to various tactics, including using children and household registration as leverage. Whether individuals cannot afford the premiums or choose not to pay them, the government perceives it as a threat. In 2022 alone, an estimated 25 million people withdrew from the program, prompting the authorities to take both soft and hard measures, including setting quotas for village cadres and offering them a 5% commission for each person enrolled. Recent reports from the Beijing Youth Daily have sparked public attention. Chat screenshots from the Xiaoga Village Information Group warn villagers that failure to pay insurance premiums by the 25th of the month will affect their children's future prospects, suggesting that they may face obstacles in passing the political review required for civil service exams. What should be a basic healthcare safeguard for the people has become a tool of social control for local governments. Depending on the targets, medical insurance can paradoxically serve as a means of social control for local authorities. For instance, in Shandong, the local government collects fees for using water from the Yellow River for irrigation. Refusal to pay may result in the cancellation of medical insurance benefits. Moreover, those involved in rights activism or released from prison are often subjected to harsh measures, including withholding or deducting social security benefits, to ensure compliance.
The desert you see now is the Taklamakan Desert, known as the Sea of Death. Taklamakan in Uyghur means a place that can be entered, but cannot be exited. It is said that this was once a city cursed thousands of years ago. Disappearing in the desert, it has since been considered a restricted area for life. The Taklamakan Desert is the largest desert in China and the second largest mobile desert in the world. Because it is located in the center of the Eurasian continent, it is affected by the cross-flow of wind and sand from the two prevailing wind directions, northwest and north. These activities are so frequent and violent that the shape of the sand dunes changes daily. Therefore, even if a desert road is built at a huge cost, the road is often submerged by the sand dunes. In the depths of this desert, there is a nation left behind by the world and history. They live in isolation to this day. It is unknown how they have remained isolated in the heart of this sea of death for more than 1,000 years. They have been guarding this paradise in the desert for generations. They are the Karya people, who live in Daryabuyi. The Karya people were once called the savage remnants. How do they survive in this land of death? In the hinterland of the desert, where do they come from? Who are their ancestors? These questions have always been a mystery. Daryabuyi means riverside in Uyghur, referring to villages along the river. This big river is the Keria River, originating from the Kunlun Mountains. After the snow in the Kunlun Mountains melts, it flows from south to north into the Taklamakan Desert, converging to form the Keria River. This creates a green corridor 10 kilometers wide from east to west and more than 300 kilometers long from north to south. At the river's end lies the Daryabuyi Oasis. Surrounded by the Keria River, there are 3,000-year-old populous Euphratica forests that have not died or fallen. Fat aquatic plants grow along both sides of the riverbank. The oasis formed by the 400-year-old ancient river along the way is where the original herdsmen, the Korea people, live. The Korea River kept changing its course due to floods, forcing the Korea people to keep migrating. Gradually, the people living in isolation lost contact with the oases on the desert's edge as the river and the oasis extended. It is difficult for outsiders, or even the Korea people themselves, to find this place. It takes 13 days to travel out by camel. Before 1895, this nation lived quietly and alone in the desert until a Swedish explorer, Sven Hedin, arrived. The explorer found two ruins, Dandan Ulik from the Tang dynasty and Karadun from the Jin and Han dynasties, within the Sand Sea, and sought to trace them to the desert's end. Curious about where the last few drops of water would lead, he walked along the riverbank. Climbing over sand dunes, passing through the populous Euphratica forest, and navigating reed swamps, he finally reached the end of the Keria River and discovered this oasis, unknown to the world. Not only were there groups of wild camels roaming freely, but the area was also a haven for wild boars. To his surprise, a community of herdsmen lived here. In his book Travel in the Heart of Asia, he excitedly wrote that the old residents in the woods were true hermits. Even the Chinese emperor ruling Xinjiang didn't know they existed. For 100 years, the history of this place remained undisturbed by unexpected technological intrusions. It took about half a century, until 1959, before the Chinese government sent an expedition team to find this isolated group of Uyghurs and built the village of Daryabuyi for them. There are about 263 households in Daryabuyi village, and the original residents number about 1,300 people. Because it is located on the bank of the Keria River, they call themselves Keria people and believe that their mission is to protect Keria. The Keria people are a distinct group. Since their ethnic identity cannot currently be precisely determined, they are classified as Uyghurs based on their use of the Uyghur language for communication. However, the Uyghur they speak is quite different from the Uyghur spoken in other areas. They humorously refer to their speech as a Uyghur dialect. The origin of the Keria people remains a mystery, as there are no records of such a village in Chinese historical documents. Even though it can be inferred from their current way of life that they have likely lived here for a long time, there is no definitive proof. The Keria people have resided in the region for more than 1,000 years, but their exact origins remain unclear. There are currently about 5 mainstream theories regarding their ancestry. One theory suggests they are descendants of the leader of the Ali Gugay dynasty in Tibet. In the mid-17th century, the Gugay dynasty faced attacks from Kashmir's Ladakh region, and after the onslaught, a small group of over 100 people crossed the Kunlun Mountains to escape the conflict and eventually settled here. Another theory proposes that they are a branch of the ancient Lulan people, who disappeared over 2,000 years ago. A third theory claims they are the remnants of one of the 36 kingdoms of the western regions. A fourth hypothesis is that they are survivors of the Huegu kingdom and the original inhabitants of the desert. The final theory posits that approximately 400 years ago, farmers from the ancient agricultural areas of the Udian Oasis, such as Mugala and Karuk, traveled north along the river in search of pasture. Finding ample water and grass, they decided to settle here. The origin of the Keria people has never been conclusively determined. In terms of physical characteristics, the Keria people bear similarities to Europeans, with tall noses, deep-set eyes, and occasionally green irises. At the same time, They also exhibit traits commonly associated with the Chinese, such as yellow-toned skin. Isolated from the world, they do not adhere to any clan beliefs but wear hairpins and Taoist robes featuring yin-yang fish patterns. However, not everyone dresses this way. Some villagers wear sheepskin clothing. While their village might seem primitive, resembling life from thousands of years ago, there are some modern elements, such as iron tools and, in recent years, electric lights. Time in the desert appears to have stood still. For the Korea people, the world outside the desert holds little meaning. They see themselves as akin to poplar trees, and their concept of time is vague. People born during the Green Time, or the Flood, cannot accurately determine their age. Over centuries, isolation has accustomed the Korea people to solitude. Whether life exists beyond the desert seems irrelevant to them. Korea Village appears as if it has reverted to the Stone Age. Households are scattered along both sides of the river, with the barrenness of the land necessitating significant distances between homes, often several kilometers, to allow vegetation to support their livelihood. Despite this, the flocks of sheep are well fed. Daryabui village spans about 2,000 square kilometers and is sparsely populated. The residents live within their own enclosures, in simple yet clean homes. Each house is constructed using poplar branches and tamarisk, plants found only in the desert. To survive, they use the enduring branches of Populus euphratica for piles, and weave the tough red willow horizontally into walls. The interiors feature wooden frames and mud walls. Floors in the large living rooms are covered with fine soil, kept moist to prevent drying. Roofs are made from reeds, with gaps filled using mud from the Keria River. Under such limited conditions, these simple structures serve as their homes. Every household creates a platform about 30 centimeters thick from sand, over which they spread carpets or wool felt to serve as beds. There is a deep pit about 50 centimeters in the middle of the house, surrounded by stones with a large pot placed on them. This serves as their kitchen and stove. Additionally, there is a fire pit about 1 square meter in size in the center of the house, used for cooking. The fire in the pit, where they eat and rest, is kept burning perpetually, because they believe fire symbolizes life. If the fire goes out, they believe the desert will become a dead place. Today, although they have modernized significantly, they still adhere to their traditional customs and spiritual heritage. The Korea people live in a harsh environment with limited food sources, but this does not mean they lack delicious cuisine. Living in the desert, they often incorporate sand into their cooking. Xinjiang's traditional staple food, naan, is called kumaichi here. Unlike traditional naan, kumaichi dough does not require fermentation. This unfermented dough is denser and more filling than other types. To prepare it, they first light a fire on the sand, heating it until the sand is hot, and then extinguish the charcoal fire. They dig a hole to create a kiln, bury the dough cake in the hole, cover it with a layer of sand, and let it simmer directly. There is no barrier between the dough and the charcoal ash. Once baked, the naan is patted clean by hand or with tools. While some dust may remain on the cake, it is harmless and aids digestion. The size of the cake depends on the kiln's dimensions. Smaller kilns produce smaller cakes, while larger kilns are used for bigger cakes. During the New Year and festivals, the cakes can grow as large as a round table. Naan in the desert can even remain fresh at room temperature for several months. Tea is a staple beverage, typically a natural milk tea brewed with tea leaves and goat's milk. Salt is often added to enhance the flavor and mask the goat milk's odor. Soaked in the salty aroma, naan becomes simply delicious. Milk tea is considered a rich and satisfying lunch for the Korea people. Additionally, the Korea people have a special medicinal tea called chaedula, made with fu tea, fennel, vanilla, and other herbal ingredients. It is said these herbs alkalize the desert water, improving its taste. Apart from tea, mutton skewers, a quintessential Xinjiang delicacy, are also popular. Using local materials, they cut red willow branches from the desert into sticks about half an arm's length and as thick as chopsticks. These are then fashioned into skewers. Lamb leg meat, cut into bun-sized pieces in a 3 lean to 1 fat ratio, is threaded onto the skewers. The burning poplar branches infuse the lamb with a smoky, tantalizing aroma. Under the vast starry sky, the Korea people gather around bonfires, eating meat and talking all night, even though they live near water sources. In 1989, the Dali Yabuyi Township government established essential services, marking the start of modernization for the Korea people, who transitioned from nomadic to settled life. Once isolated, their land became a tourist destination, introducing them to both civilization and its disruptions. The Koreas, rooted in nature and tradition, embraced modern education and agricultural techniques, but faced challenges like shrinking water resources. In 2016, the government initiated their relocation due to ecological and economic concerns. By 2019, all 362 households had moved to a new village, leaving behind their desert homeland. This transition reflects the diminishing existence of minority groups as civilization expands.